So this little table here, full of positive outcomes, to be honest with you. It's a mixed bag. A lot of those larches that we were just talking about a minute ago have actually done phenomenally well again. Just the actual vigour and the health in them. You know, look at that. It's a bit useless, but it's healthy, and it's fixing this wound, so that's cool. And obviously it's getting in keep now with the rest of the tree, or for creating taper. We've got a couple of branches that I've just kept on the back burner and cut them back, but like I say, I'm looking forward to taking home all these larches and kind of working through them, kind of out the heat and in my own time. But yeah, some really nice little larch trees, you know, starting to begin to get taper and some ramification on the branches, and just generally good branch placement on them all. You know, all of these have got good potential, I feel. So really happy with larches this year. They've done really well. Funny enough, the gentleman I had here earlier, he said they grow like weeds, and certainly this year they have done. They can be a bit sulky when you first collect them, as with anything, but yeah, a tough old thing, larch. This is kind of out of place, but I'll show you while we're here. This is a field maple. This is a good example of a project that actually I thought I'd messed up a bit last year. Not in terms of where I was going with the shape or anything, just the wire bit in, and I was a bit concerned. I've had with other maples, especially when they're quite vigorous growing, you get kind of inverse taper and bulges around scars sometimes, so it's not always great. But the actual bit that I want, which is probably this section somewhere, the wire hasn't really done anything and it's grown out. So you can only see here where it's almost an example of what I'm talking about, where there's a bit more of a bulge there. You have to have a keen eye for it really, but you know, that has been damaged by the wire and may get worse with time. But the bit that I wanted has come on. Yeah, so in general, other than that little bit with the wire, you know, again, it's another one in a development stage where I'm letting it grow as strong as I can, just to thicken up the main trunk, thicken up the new section of you know, if you're growing this style of bonsai, I guess, and just heal wounds. And as you can see, all three of those are being achieved. So that's another good example of something in development. And you see the healing there. It's really gone well. That no paste on this one either, or it's fell away, the liquid stuff I used, but I'd say that never had any. Yeah, just quite happy with that coming on there. I know everyone loves a cedar air layer, as it were. Now we did these two again, start of the year, in a video in my living room. One of the earliest layers that I'd kind of set out to do, and I think in the comments a few people were saying, oh, it's too early, blah blah blah, or whatever. But you do with what you know, you go with what you know works, and seeing how probably one of the only people that seems to say these work, I guess I'll go with what I know, because there's nothing out to know about it yet. But well, I guess we gave the game away there. But yeah, there's roots on this Theodora cedar air layer there. Now over the last month, these have been getting thicker and thicker, so it really is having a good go now. Couple of nice ones there, and they're starting to collect up a bit down here, and round this side, maybe this was in the shade, a load more. So it's pretty much ready to cut. There's been no swelling on the wire yet, and I wouldn't expect that really, because it's not growing much other than these buds did manage to break. And to be honest, throughout this whole season, the tops look healthier than the bottom, which is surprising. I think maybe the soil was a little bit heavy, a bit gritty in here. So going by all this moss garden down here, probably has been a bit heavy, the soil. You can get that with grits and sands. But also as well, if you did watch that video, you'd be familiar with the fact that we took some cuttings off the area that I had to clear, obviously, to take the layer, and they were all daubed in the pot round the edge. I'm not going to lift them out right now, but I'm pretty sure, you know, something's happened there, because they don't stay green through 30 degrees all year if they're not doing something. I'll just clear a bit of this junk. So this will be one for another date, where we'll cut the layer, maybe again in the coming weeks, because I need to move with this one, to be fair. And we'll have a look at this. We'll actually we'll do a light repot on it and put it in the greenhouse over winter. I'm sure it'll be fine. A bit out of season, but after last winter's weather and just losing cedars, then you know, if I know I can improve something before that point, I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. Looking at this root growth here, it's more than active still. I've put nothing on the Atlas blue cedar yet, but this is the one that I lost the layers off of, so I know it works. It can take several years with these blue ones. There's nothing just yet, and I wouldn't expect that, to be honest. If we got one out of there this year, I think that would be exceptional. It's quite a chunky piece as well. This thing's just been kind of butchered and butchered. We'll do something with it one day. The graft's actually beginning to hide now as well, so one way or another that will get turned into something. So that's really good. So we've not only achieved the Atlas blue cedar on an air layer, the Deodora, which I probably thought would actually be a more achievable because of the fact that cuttings work. I'd read that cuttings work, but yeah, air layers in the first year. So if you found one in a garden centre, because this was a garden centre tree, there wasn't really much going on with any of them. This was probably the most interesting one out of the whole lot. So I preemptively wired the top, air layered it, and now we'll have a graft-free, you know, nice flary base piece of cedar with movement, and I'm sure it's going to be more as vigorous as this down here. So that's a good one. We won't get too hung up on here, but I'll show you some Scotch pines that I've put some crazy movement in a video last year. They were all around this size. This is actually a really nice example of a little pine here. Look at these branches as well, and they've all got three. So obviously we'll have to wrap one of those out at one point, but at the moment that's just a cool little blank canvas. Really nice movement. So they're all that size, and just by these ones being potted up, that was the same tree, same size seedling, wired at the same time. Got some really nice, that was just sitting there when I repotted it, but some really nice movement there, and more back buds all the way along there, and really close together as well. So I'm probably closer than the branches would have been, so it's quite interesting. That it's kind of unusual for a pine. And that one there is a bit artificial, but you know, it's cool. We could always just come off with this one at some point and maybe have a cascade, I don't know, cascade, or it's limitless, isn't it? Bonsai is limitless. I don't think you should always work to a mould. Right, a couple more things on here because I know where this is getting on, but I have a lodgepole pine here. I've probably showed you other lodgepole pines when I've got young seedling ones flowering, but this one's kind of really special because and the roots there are good. It's like a clump style one, and there's probably about 10 little bits here, some of them from different heights as well, which is kind of cool. So yeah, out of some of the seedling ones I'm going to have to thin down and sell on, but that's one that I'll definitely be hanging on to. It's presented itself to be unusual, so not often you see lodgepole pines, and not often you see a clump style one like that, so that's a long way off being anything, but something for me to work on. Yeah, nothing too more eventful on there. There's a lodgepole pine that I put some movement into. The wire's just starting to bite. It was a little bit skinny down the bottom, so I'm just going to let the wire bite into there. And probably take it off of this part. I will do that with two hands properly though at some point. And maybe actually I'll put a bit more wire down there and let that bite next year, because I need to catch that up at some point. The thing with pines, when they grow a bit too vigorous on top, the bottom can be a bit inverse. I just noticed that a lot with them. One more I'll show you here, which is kind of cool. This was that boring pine I told you about that I took over to Peter. I actually offered him it, and he ended up bending it into this lovely tree, and which I didn't see in there. I'm going to be honest, I didn't actually see this, and it was just so simple, so quick. He'd done a branch split down there, which also fascinates me, you know, because I've always been a bit dubious of how it heals and what it looks like, but now I've got an example, and made by obviously Peter Chan, so that'll be another tree. Maybe I'll let my little brother have this one to look after, because he does very well at just looking after trees and leaving them alone. So I'll maybe let him have it, look after it for a bit longer, and we'll work on it together. But yeah, another one that now I can't get rid of, you see. That's it's a ball and chain. But I'm very happy to have that, and I do love the way he's done it. I like that. Very good. That little spruce from a video before as well. Just where I've done a little deadwood. I'll come back to refining this at some point, but just interesting to see how it's had a season to heal and get on with it. On here I've got a few of my collected hawthorns. I've parted with one or two, and I've been asked several times, obviously, as you can imagine, for these chunkier ones. This, I don't want to let it go really. It's an absolute beast, and it's got nice movement there. Just been working on fattening up this new leader up here. All this needs to come off really, but I was letting it just kind of feed it up because it was looking a bit poorly. This year it seems to be field maples and hawthorns in pots have really suffered from mildew and things, even when they're quite healthy trees and haven't been tampered with. I don't think the soil is great in that one for whatever reason. Maybe it felt good in the mix, but over time it's not brilliant. So I'll probably drag those in for winter into the greenhouse, but repot in spring and take those home. I think again my little brother will inherit one of these. I know which one I'm probably going to give him, which is one from the video probably a couple of months back now, where we actually cleaned up the cut on this one. I think a few people were a bit wary about how close I cut to this new leader, but again in my own mind I knew I was safe. You know, if you're yanking the plant around, certainly, but if you're doing a nice clean cut and it's already growing strong, the plant's not going to reject it, I don't think, especially not a hawthorn anyway. And as you can see, we've had no dye back from the bark. It's got a heel ring all the way around. I probably need to flatten it out a bit more really myself, but look at the strength of this now. And those branches that we had wired down and done some chops on have all forked out again. So again, there's another great job here trimming these back at some point, and maybe we'll do a shorter video just having a little pick through these. Another one over here. This one was the first ever one that I actually started working on with a hawthorn. So I had permission in the past to dig out some quite nice ones, but you know, as you start digging around them, you realise the roots are a bit awkward. And I kind of had this you know, belief that they were an awkward thing to recover in a pot, but they're actually the easiest thing ever, you know, in my earlier days. But you can't ask for an easier thing to actually dig up and transplant really. And this one, going back to this, I'll come off subject a little bit there, but this was my first one. I left it quite long, made this new leader section, which was, you know, which was only a bud when I started that. So that's 2 years on that there. You can see I've made various cuts and carried it on, and now I think we're ready just to start triangulating this one. This is probably a good example of one that's actually been collected, had the bits done to it, left alone. It's, you know, really actually is screaming now for something to be done to it. Really good year on this one. If we get the same kind of growth out of the others next year, because this was a year ahead of all the others, yeah, really successful little group of stumps there. So we've gone over the one from the previous video anyway, but yeah, really nice movement, great new leader, so I'm quite happy with that. I think my brother will inherit that one, so he'll be quite lucky to have that, because that would be an expensive tree in a few years. And I've got this one last chunkier one that I'm probably going to part with, so if anyone out there close to Bedfordshire is interested in any of these material trees, always drop me a message, because I've got to downsize this. And you know, finding good like-minded people who want an actual reasonable piece of material at a bargain price, you know, I'm happy to actually to let it go to some of those folks. I won't be happy if I see it on eBay next year for 100 quid in a tiny pot rushed. So yeah, I'll maybe part with this one. So if anyone's desperate for a hawthorn and can't get one for whatever reason, get in contact and make me an offer for it. Cool little project here. I'll just show you another field maple. So I've got to thin down these field maples because I've got 3 pretty decent sized ones. This one I do want to keep. I just can't quite remember what the roots are like. And there's ants in the pot, so it's been a pain for aphids. It's done quite a bit of damage, to be fair. But the healing's going quite well on here. I need to trim all this out and just get it down a little bit, because it's a bit proud, but healing up really well, and it's ready for a chunk chop. Another great example of bulking up trees, creating taper, You know, this is a really good example of that. It's a nice movement, and you can see there's angles where you can use it where you can actually completely avoid that cut. And obviously there's areas here where there's going to be plenty of buds to come from, so you know, I'm probably going to take it here anyway, but you won't have a problem getting buds from that site there. So really cool project, maybe for spring, if I'm still allowed to be in here in spring. Maybe this will be one that we actually work through, do the chunk chop, and repot it into a smaller pot, because it doesn't need to be in a big pot anymore. All this I've grown since that original chop, so it's yeah, nice piece of material. That one quick thing I'll show you on here as well, because it was a previous project. You can see the roots coming out the bottom of this one. Well, I'll show you these ones first, and then I'll show you this, because this is interesting as well, and it does lead on from these because they're all the same thing. These I got from a job this year. We're doing up some really old barns at the back of Bedford, and he has a bit of forest around the site, and absolutely teeming with maples, sycamores, hawthorns, cherries, everything. Really great, carpeted of little saplings, you know, and I had permission to take whatever we kind of want, really, within reason. I only took 2 because I got too many trees already, but I did take 2 nice field maple, Norway maples, to kind of do a mimic of the one that I repotted, one of my personal trees at home. Although this is a really nice tree by itself. But I just wanted to share these again, just to show you these were collected this year, and the absolute vigour of, and they were really, you know, we butchered them roots. But that was, you know, collected this year, and probably got a nice new leader there, if you see, and a really nice trunk and great branches. They're just all in the right places. It's just, most people don't like the leaves, but you couldn't have asked for a better collected tree. That is, I'm happy with that, you know. But I was thinking of maybe doing a twin planting with that, but actually now seeing that again and showing you guys it there, I think that's got to be its own tree, hasn't it? And the reason I want to show you this one with it, because this actually has got some of the damage on here, and you could panic here, or some people would be oblivious, but you could panic when you see this one. There's another little lesson in this video. You know, it does look a little bit weevily to the untrained eye, kind of thing, you know. Well, it even kind of freaked me out at the start, because weevils are something you do not want when you have this many pot plants, and it's something I've worked tirelessly over the last few years to make sure we don't have any problems with, without using any chemicals, pesticides, anything, nematodes. I don't do any of that. I use a torch and a thing, and a torch, a pint glass, and stilts on everything with water under it. But yeah, you could freak out and potentially think this was weevil, but I'm going to say to you that this is a leafcutter bee, or it'd have to be a super steroid weevil, you know, much bigger than our native one. If it is native, I'm not sure. But yeah, this leafcutter bee has absolutely gone to town on this. He's pretty much left it like a block of cheese, hasn't he? You know, you see in cartoon books. Some leaves he's took pretty much every usable part from. So I'm not going to moan about that. I love bees. I keep bees myself. And I just thought that's a nice little educational one there. You know, something that can look like leaf vine weevil, but honestly that's all leafcutter bee on there. Vine weevil's a little bit smaller than that, and not so like circular, you know, it's more of a crescent really. But yeah, something there, so you've actually seen an example of it. So that's a leafcutter bee, and if I do see it doing its job, I'll try and video it, because what it does, it takes these leaves, it rolls it up into a little cocoon kind of thing, and we got a ladybird down there as well, that's good. And then it buries them in the pots. So in spring sometimes as well, I'll find the actual little capsules of the where the bees laid its eggs, and that'll be next year's bees that come out. So a bit different to your honeybee where it builds a comb. These cut little discs of leaf and take them to building walls or soft mortar or soil where it's the right sandbank or whatever, and bury them in. So although it's been damaging to the plant, it won't do no damage to the roots, and that's fine with me. That's absolutely fine, because we've probably made 100 little bees there or something, so that's kind of cool, that. Right, we'll move on. So that brings us to the last part. You know, maybe I have to do this video in 2 parts, so I'll have to see how long it is when it comes out. So you may be watching part 2 now, or the very last of part 1. Most of what's on this bench, to be fair, we're going to try and sneak it home into my own garden. Probably not into the ground for some of it. Some of it will be kind of heading into some description of a training pot. Got a nice piece of juniper there. Actually, I'll be willing to part with that if anyone's interested. It's a nice air layer, a really decent flare of roots on there. Again, where I've listed a few of these things on eBay, because I'm not willing to post them, I'd rather the person come and collected it. They're struggling to sell, but I've got some really decent stuff here that wants a good home, and I'm sure it will do you well. You know, all these projects have been treated as my own project. So, you know, love and care has gone into it, and good decisions, hopefully. But anyway, yeah, flicking through here, some interesting things. I've got a western headlock there. I had to think about that. I had a few of these. This is the one I'm going to keep. So I've parted with a couple of them now. I've got one more over there. But this one I'm going to keep because it flares out really nice. And it's actually, I like twin trunk things, and I feel like that's already great. So just something to do with this side here next. So I'm going to persevere with that. Something I've said about before, but no one seems too interested in it. But I think it's great regardless, and I've put a bit of movement in it this year. And this is a single leaf ash. Unless anyone can tell me it's not an ash, but I'm pretty sure it's an ash, going by that growth there and that bud. It's kind of unmistakable really, but it just grows single leaves. I don't know what made me pick this up. Young seedling ash normally still have groups of 3 compound leaves, you know, building up to 5, 7s. You know, it builds up as maturity, but or just how vigorous it is. But yeah, this has remained unchanged. So single lobed ash tree. You know, not the coolest leaf in the world, but the fact that there's an ash usable there for bonsai in a smaller scale, that's quite a rare thing. That. I've got a sad looking conker tree there, which just has a great naberi. That's the only reason I've got that seedling. I've dug it out of the garden. For some reason, maybe it dried out, but it's actually got such a great ring of roots. I got suckered into that. Whether it will be anything, I don't know. There's an oak here that I've been persevering for quite a while now. So this is pretty much ready now for another chop, really. Winter really took its toll on this, but it came back all right from the top. But this just has an amazing base to it. It really does have a nice full set of roots, as you always hear me harping on about all my trees. The roots are quite important to me, and the base as well. You know, it's great. So again, now just the hard part is just conquering the. I think it needs to get a little bit bigger, but you know, I don't want this cut being unhealable, as it were. That's the way we've kept with it, doing chops early on, and they've pretty much healed as we've gone. So really nice example of an oak there. I've got high hopes for that one. That's coming home. These I've mentioned this before. Dark leaf or purple leaf Norway maple, Acer platanoides. This is another really good example, if we're going to learn anything in the tour for the newer people, of creating taper. Although this is starting to lend itself to being a twin trunk, which actually works really well with this variety, I found. They just look nice and striking when the bark starts cracking up. But it was just going to be to create taper and be cut off, and you can see how extreme that taper becomes when you do cut that off. But now I'm beginning to like this. So we'll see. It's a bit of an awkward root. It was growing in a pavement crack kind of thing. The roots weren't great on the flare, but I think over the last couple of years I've managed to improve that situation. I had another one here, which is slightly different leaf. It doesn't look too different now, but it is a lot more darker, this one. Almost really purple in spring. Probably going to give that one to my little brother as well to persevere with. You know, they're unusual to find from seedlings. I think as these trees are maturing now in England, you are starting to find these a little bit more, but you know, when I was a kid they were quite rare to find from seedlings, especially from grafted trees. You might get the occasional one, dark leaf one. A couple of other little trees that are quite special to me. These golden elms. This is an air layer of a cutting of an original tree from when the owner of this establishment had a little tree farm around the corner where my father worked. And this is always a tree when I was a kid, always fascinated me really, because elms have been wiped out, and my dad would tell me obviously what had happened there. And this was an elm that obviously I'd see as a kid, you know, a little bit bigger than the hedgerow ones, and just such a striking thing. See, it really has glorious foliage. So these are both AirLayers off that original cutting I took of one of those trees, you know, from 20 years ago. And there's still a lot around the village, to be fair. You can see where Jeff had actually maybe sold or gave some away to people, because there's a lot of those around this village and they're not common elsewhere. So I'll keep one of these, it'll come home with me. I've got one more at home that I'll let my little brother have probably, and I'm probably going to put one up with my dad on that. So it's one of his favourite trees, as it were. So I found homes for those, as it were. A couple of other notable bits on this bench. This was a really late repot where it was sulking in a really shallow pot. And I do like this trunk, so I've carried on with this. You know, this isn't anything that special, it's just a hornbeam. But it was repotted, you know, I'd say midsummer, in this loose mix with compost, brick, perlite, all the bits and bobs there. And look at the comparison to one that's just in the normal soil that I don't think this even dried out. Maybe it was bugs or something. The buds are really healthy on this, but even with that late repot, you see, and that open texture soil, you can see the difference there, and that's in brick as well. So testament again to our brick mixture. Just need to refine it a little bit. But again, what a charming little tree this is, you see. And going back to the development, you know, I've done this from the initial trunk chop, grown another leader, probably up to nearly 6 foot like you saw in that hornbeam I showed you earlier. And then we've just started that process again, and we're probably ready for another chop and start doing something with this. And I'm just going to use a cut and clip kind of, grow and clip kind of method with this, and just keep it triangular and see how it goes really. That's really looking after itself, that one. Just the foliage lets it down this year. But I can see the buds have all swollen. So whether it's having another flush or it's just getting ready, I think that's going to be good going forward. Another little hawthorn stump that I just chopped back the other week, just because I thought, you know, this leader had caught up finally, and then you see where I've cut that again. So I've cut it here and I've cut it here. Now I need to do something here. I just want to make a smaller tree out of this. I didn't want it getting too big, so I feel like there's enough going on there now. A little sycamore I've persevered with. Loads of you are familiar with the largest sycamore I've got, my dad's old tree that I started with him as a kid. This will probably head to my little brother's way, just because you know, it's an easy to look after thing, and I'll enjoy making that with him. And you can see again, you see how these leaders are created from these chops. There's the next one there, and certainly with this sycamore I will do that there, because it's so vigorous growing, it doesn't take that long to catch up with that. But you know, these are just good examples of the process happening. And as far as like completed ones, I'm more than happy mucking around with things like this, you know, creating each stage of it. My little forest did dry out, unfortunately. Another casualty of that. Honestly, it was one time this year, out of all those, you know, couple of years of not missed one watering and the damage it caused. But the actual little forest, which I thought was actually going to cop it, and this is heading to my little brother as well, whether he, I'm sure he'll be grateful of all these, but he's getting quite a few. All the little buds now reforming. Again, it's a bit late in the year to be pushing this out of trees. I believe that actually weakens them to a degree, because them leaves won't do much, but it survived. So, you know, that was quite a harsh drying out, and I don't think I can see a dead one in there. So I hope this one does the same. And in fact, because that position has been doing well for it now, I'm going to get them in a little bit more sun now. Just encourage that bounce back. Not really too much eventful, just some hibiscus that I was growing, bonsai starters. I'm probably going to part with these, so if anyone likes a blue hibiscus and want to make me a little offer for them, I've got those that need to go somewhere as well. They just need to really go in the ground and a better quality soil really. But I have fed them recently and they've got a bit more colour back into them. So I know some people struggle with junipers and things like that, but hibiscus is my bugbear. It never looks too healthy with me. This one looks great, but in a pot they can suffer a bit if the feed's not right. I've got some pines over here that I've just been pretty brutal to be honest, but that's nothing unusual. So I know they were well established in the pots, So they've had a couple of years now recovering from when I actually got some of these larger ones. It's just overgrown root ball stock. So now I finally managed to actually, this is another summer repot, which I'm sure, I wouldn't encourage this, but you know, if you got a feel for it, I'm sure it'll be fine. And that's a lodgepole pine again. There was nothing going on up here. So I've been quite brutal to this, and now it can fit at home somewhere, even on the shed roof with the pines. You know, as long as they're watered, they can miss a little bit of water, it won't kill them. So yeah, I've really knocked these back as hard as we can, and we'll see what comes back from them next spring, refine it a little bit more, and I think that's the best way to go with these, because some of them are so awkward, the actual, you know, the bulk of it. I think we need to go for small, rough bark little trees with some gin or sharis. No, I think there's something there with these anyway. You see even this one here where it's been hacked. This was out of the garden I got. I only dug it up because it had big needles. It's just something I didn't need to get involved in. But actually, I like the shape of it here. It's got some pretty crazy bright, like one of these could be a leader, but we've got new buds coming already. So you can see, as long as the roots are good and the tree was strong, you can be quite brutal to pines at times. This is one I've had from pretty much a seedling. I've just persevered with it really. Again, it's got a good naberry, so that's why I've carried on with that. And I'm going to grow this more like a traditional pine, so I don't want too much movement in it, and maybe just a few, you know, shelfy branches. But yeah, a long way off some of this stuff, so we won't waste too much time on that. I have a few things here as well, just before we wrap it up. If anyone out there wants a couple of elms cheap, I have these here. Again, if you made me an offer for them and are able to collect them, some really good AirLayer in potential here. I don't really want to give up on them, but I haven't got the room for it. If I'm honest, I've took some nice AirLayers in the past. So these are things that I never got round to doing. I was going to put a forest together with these. I had quite a few. I've sold a few now. And there's one other chunkier one there as well. That's a really nice piece actually, that. You could, you know, you could maybe get 3 out of that or 2. It's up to you. You know, elms can be all various sizes because of the leaf size. They're quite a flexible thing. And there's kind of an example of, you know, what I'm on about when I say about taking an AirLayer of a section. I just took a little section of it. I've just been hacking it back, and that would be probably my English elm that I'll keep. So there's 3 decent elms there if anyone's interested. And close to Bedfordshire, or like I said, I've got quite a bit of stuff here, so it's maybe worth a day trip out. A nice garden to look round as well, although I don't want hordes of people turning up. I've got, let's say, a few things I have to part with here. And there's another example of an elm AirLayer there. See another section, so you can see the kind of bits you can just take from there. That's a nice just trunk of a tree, isn't it? You know. Yeah, very good. Hawthorn that I collected, these were like root sections of it that had kind of come away from the main tree, and you can see there are, well, you've got some cracking roots there. Again, it might make a nice little tree for someone. So things like this I get sucked into hanging onto, but there's too many projects to actually do without flipping it into an actual business. And obviously with the circumstances at the moment, I've not been moved off of this site. I'm being courteous and preparing to move off of this site, so hence why I'm not giving up on these projects either. You know, I'm trying to just thin it down and be realistic, because it does pay me to give some of this away for the prices I have been, but I'd rather someone had it, looked after it, and I see a picture of it in 5 to 10 years, and I know that I started that at least, and that guy had great, or lady had great joy from you know, an honest piece of material, and not some, you know, £100 piece of elm on eBay that's just been chucked in a pot that year. That will probably die on the poor person, and they'll give up bonsais. Yeah, so that's about rounded off there. Maybe one thing, a good note to end on really, would be these white pines that, again, was like kind of substance of my earlier videos. I haven't done much to them this year, other than I did actually have a cheeky look into the roots, and they've responded really well from that first butchery we did of it, where we actually took all the soil off. And they were nursery stock, so I felt they were in such poor soil anyway, there wasn't much to lose. And they were also grown in those little kind of, I don't know what material you would call it, but they're like a meshy little bag. that the cuttings are put into, obviously, and then grafted. But all the roots get fired down into a weird shape, which can work in effect quite nicely if you keep them all together. But the odd one comes up, and one, you know, and they don't just seem to grow well. So we've unpicked that mess. One of them, the graft looks quite promising on. The other one's a bit slim at the bottom, but you know, there's techniques certainly for working on that now, which I'm kind of aware. It just takes a little bit more time, you know, than some people want to put in. But also now knowing that my graft worked on the white pine, on the white pine, I'll probably get some little black pines and try doing some really, you know, low down grafts with a slight bending already. So we'll see how that goes. But again, one of these I'll probably give to my brother, and the other one I'll put into my garden in the container, and you know, get it up every year or so, but just to have it out the way and just persevere with one of these, because although I have a finished white pine as such, I don't want to give up on not making one either. Just wait for this helicopter to go over. So I'd say they've, so I'd say these have been fairly successful in the fact that, you know, we've done a harsh repot, they survived that. I've learned a lot about pines through these. The back budding is actually great on them as well. So, you know, if they don't make bonsai, they'll make great garden, like kind of cloud tree form kind of things, I would have thought. So yeah, I'm happy with those. Like I say, my little brother will probably be lucky enough to get something quite rare, because it's hard to actually buy a white pine in a garden centre nowadays, even if you're not looking to make bonsais out of it, because all the bonsai folk snap them up the minute they land, which you can't blame them. So yeah, I think that's about it now, really. The last kind of thing of interest on this table, these little cedars. I actually gave one of them to the gentleman that come and bought some plants this morning off me. This one's slightly exposed here, so you can see a bit of a berry going on there, but these are just seed grown cedars. I collected them from little seedlings. We've got quite a nice root spread there. That's a bit aerial, that root, but maybe this will lean over a bit more. These have been really good. They survived the winter on their own roots. You know, testament to those really. So maybe that'll be worth carrying on with those cedars. They've got a hardy streak in them, a locally sourced tree. Well, that about wraps up our little tour around today. Like I say, after this morning's walk around with a guy and quite an inspirational chat about all these trees, you know, 2.5 hours have passed in no time. It felt like 15 minutes, to be honest with you. So I thought, to be fair, let's get out and actually do a video. So we've actually succeeded in that today. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope I've been shouting at the camera enough, because I still haven't invested in a mic. But no, certainly a lot of the things we talked about today as well, you know, I'm intending to get them projects done. I need to get them done as well, so hopefully I'll get the opportunity to film them. And like I said, with the odd few things I've mentioned around there, a few things here are you know, I need to downsize it. So if there is anyone local that's interested, you know, drop me an email of that, and I'll try and answer you back. Well, like I say, we're going to wrap it up there. One more thing I did just want to quickly mention. I always do that. One more thing. I'd just like to wish Tom a speedy recovery from growing clip seniors for bonsai. He mentioned he had a pacemaker fitted recently. The guy has been an absolute rock to our channel, always a friendly comment. I know he watches the videos through and through, you know, you can tell by his comments. So yeah, rest up, Tom, and I hope you enjoy this one. You know, it gives you a little bit, well, if your computer will work for you, I hope it gives you a little bit of a respite. And for the rest of you guys, new subscribers, previous ones, if you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.